Right, so you're standing in line at airport security, shoes off, belt off, laptop in a separate tray, doing the awkward sock shuffle through the metal detector, and you've never once stopped to ask why. Why shoes? Why specifically shoes? Whose fault is this exactly? Well, I have a name for you. Today we're talking about laws, rules, and policies that exist because one specific person did one specific thing. Not vibes, not lobbying, not gradual cultural shift. One person, one bad day, one rule change that affects literally everyone forever. Some of these you'll have heard of. Some of them are going to make you genuinely angry on behalf of humanity. Let's go. First up, Richard Reed. December 22, 2001, American Airlines Flight 63, Paris to Miami. Richard boards the plane in shoes that he has personally hollowed out and packed with plastic explosives. He sits down, he gets through the meal service, and then, in front of dozens of people, he tries to light the fuse hanging out of his sneaker. With a match. Multiple matches. The flight attendant, Hermes Mountier, smells smoke, walks over and finds him hunched in his seat trying to set his own foot on fire. Passengers tackle him, they tie him up with belts and headphone cords, the plane diverts to Boston, Richard goes to a Supermax prison for life. Here's the part. The fuse didn't ignite because his feet were sweaty and the fuse got damp. That is it. That is the entire reason 19 years of human beings worldwide had to walk barefoot across airport carpet that has never once been cleaned. One guy, sweaty feet. The TSA only ended the shoes off rule in July 2025. 23 years. Sweaty feet. I think about this a lot. Level up. The Chicago Tylenol murders. September 1982. Someone, and to this day nobody knows who, walked into pharmacies around Chicago, bought bottles of extra-strength Tylenol, took them home, opened the capsules, replaced the contents with potassium cyanide, resealed them, and put them back on the shelves. 7 people died, including a 12-year-old girl named Mary Kellerman who took 1 capsule for a sore throat and was dead within hours. The case was never solved. The prime suspect died in 2023, still denying it. And here is what one anonymous person in Chicago did to the entire planet. They invented tamper-proof packaging. Every single time you have peeled a foil seal off a peanut butter jar, every plastic ring you've snapped off a milk bottle, every blister pack you've struggled with at 3 a.m. with a headache, that is all because of this person. Congress passed the Federal Anti-Tampering Act in 1983. The FDA mandated tamper-evident seals across the entire industry, and the gelatin capsule was almost completely replaced by the solid caplet because capsules were too easy to mess with. One anonymous individual. The whole world's medicine cabinet. Forever. Basically the supervillain origin story for child-proof caps. Then something changes. We move from terrorism to naming your kid Adolf Hitler. Real story, New Jersey, 2008. A man named Heath Campbell decides to name his 3 children Adolf Hitler Campbell, Joyce Lynn Aryan Nation Campbell, and Hans Lynn Hindler Genie Campbell. Now, this is technically legal in the U.S. because we don't have name laws like other countries, but Heath wants a birthday cake for little Adolf's 3rd birthday, and he goes to his local ShopRite, and the bakery says, yeah, no, we will not be writing that. He goes to Walmart writes it, then realizes what they have done. The story goes national, and within weeks, Child Protective Services took all 3 children into custody. The cake itself didn't trigger that, but the cake brought the family into the spotlight, and the spotlight surfaced years of documented domestic violence in that home. The whole conversation in the U.S. about whether you actually have an unlimited right to name your child whatever you want, the bakery industry quietly developing internal policies about what they will and will not write in frosting, family courts looking at name-based abuse claims much more seriously, all of that traces back to one frosted cake refusal in a New Jersey supermarket. And then, speaking of names, New Zealand, 2008 again, big year for naming controversies apparently, a 9-year-old girl walks into a family court in Hawera, New Zealand. Her parents, separated, have officially named her Talula does the Hula from Hawaii. Yes, full stop. That is her full legal name. Talula has been telling her friends a fake name for years because she is too embarrassed to say her real one. Judge Robert Murfitt looks at this and, in a rare move, takes legal custody of the child, specifically and only to change her name. He calls the name a social disability that makes a fool of the child. This case kicks off New Zealand's now famous list of officially banned baby names. Names rejected by the Department of Internal Affairs since include Lucifer, Anal, Mafia No Fear, and a set of twins someone tried to name Fish and Chips. One Hawera girl, named Talula, an entire country's naming bureaucracy. This is the part that got me. Imagine being the lawyer assigned to choose her new name. That is a Wednesday at the office I am not built for. Level up again. Michael Herbert Dangler, 1976, high school teacher in North Dakota, files a petition with the courts to legally change his name to 1069. Just the number. The judge says, "Sir, that's a number." Michael says, "I know, that is the point." He explains, and I want you to picture this man delivering this in court with a straight face, that the 1 represents his concept of nature manifesting as one individual, the 0 represents his interconnectedness with the void, the 6 represents some other thing, and the 9 represents the cycle of life. The exact reasoning is allegedly more philosophical than I'm making it sound. I choose to believe my version. The North Dakota Supreme Court rules, no, you cannot be a number. Michael moves to Minnesota, tries again. The Minnesota Supreme Court also rules, no, you cannot be a number. 2 state Supreme Courts had to formally rule that human beings cannot have numerical names because of one guy. There is now a generally accepted legal principle in the United States that you cannot register as 1069. Genuinely useful precedent set entirely by one philosophy enthusiast who would not stop. That was the easy part. Pringles. Yes, Pringles. 2007, the United Kingdom. The maker of Pringles, Procter & Gamble, decides they don't want to pay the 17.5% VAT that the UK puts on potato crisps, so their lawyers walk into court and argue with their full chest that Pringles are not, in fact, a potato crisp. Their argument is that Pringles are only 42% potato. The rest is wheat starch and rice flour and corn flour, and most importantly, and I am quoting the actual legal filing here, Pringles have a shape not found in nature, so technically they are not a chip. The lower court agrees. P&G wins. Then HM Revenue takes them to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal looks at this, looks at the Pringles tube, looks at the lawyer with the straight face, and says, "Mate, that's a crisp." P&G is hit with around £20 million a year in VAT going forward, which over time has cost them well into the hundreds of millions. There is now a piece of British case law that exists solely to formally define what is and is not a potato chip, because Procter & Gamble could not let it go. Absolutely diabolical. Admirable in a terrible way. And then, final one. This is the meta twist. Stella Liebeck, 1992, Albuquerque. 79 years old, she buys a 49-cent coffee from a McDonald's drive-thru, sits in the parked car of her grandson's Ford Probe, which has no cup holder, puts the cup between her knees to add cream and sugar, and the entire cup spills into her lap. She suffers third-degree burns over 6% of her body, requires skin grafts, and asks McDonald's for $20,000 to cover medical bills. McDonald's offers her $800. She sues, she wins, she becomes the most mocked plaintiff in American legal history. The Stella Awards are named after her, mocking frivolous lawsuits. Here is the part that is easy to skim past and should absolutely not be. McDonald's was holding their coffee at 180 to 190 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to cause third-degree burns in 2 to 7 seconds, and they had received over 700 prior complaints of burns. The verdict was actually completely reasonable, but the public did not get the actual story. They got the joke version. And from that joke version, an entire generation of warning labels was born. Caution, contents hot. Caution, do not iron clothes while wearing them. Caution, do not use hairdryer in shower. Every dumb warning label that has ever made you mutter obviously under your breath, that genre of label exists because one elderly woman in Albuquerque got a settlement that the public misunderstood for 30 years. The actual idiots in this story are us. So yeah, that's the pattern. One person's bad day, one corporation's bad argument, one judge's bad afternoon, and now the rest of us are unwrapping foil seals at 3 a.m. wondering how we got here. If you liked this one, I have a whole video on legal things that make zero sense, which feels like the natural sequel and prequel and middle of this video all at once. Go watch that one next. And as always, bro, got you.